Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Triangulation is brought to you by Cashfly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Triangulation, episode 143, recorded March 17th, 2014. Marty Cooper. Triangulation is brought to you by Prosper. Prosper is a peer-to-peer lending marketplace that connects people who are looking to borrow money with those who have money to lend. Visit prosper.com/twit and receive a $50 Amazon gift card when you get a loan. And by NatureBox, where you can order great-tasting, healthy snacks delivered right to your door. Forget the vending machine and get in shape with healthy, delicious treats like garden tomato crunchies. To get 50% off your first box, go to naturebox.com/twit. That's naturebox.com/twit. And by Personal Capital. With Personal Capital, you'll finally have all your financial life in one place and get a clear view of everything you own. Best of all, it's free. To sign up, go to personalcapital.com/triangulation. It's time for Triangulation, the show where we sit down and spend some time with some of the most interesting, smartest, insightful people on the internet. And we have a pioneer with us today. I'm very excited to have Marty Cooper on the show with us. You might have seen a recent ad. Was it a Mazda ad? Or fellas
Yep, it was.
walking down the street with one of those big brick phones, the Michael Douglas Wall Street style phone, and he's placing a call, and he says, "You'll never guess what I just invented." Now it's a young guy, but this is the guy who inspired that ad. Marty Cooper created the first portable phone, not a car phone, but the first portable phone while at Motorola. Hi, Marty. It's great to meet you.
Hi, Leo. Great to be here.
So tell us, there's some backstory that I don't know if the people seeing that ad really know what they're seeing.
Yeah, I'm quite amazed at why Mazda did this, because people like you who are knowledgeable know about that story, but very few others do. And then they had to, why did they have to go and find a stand-in for me?
It should have been you.
I would think so. All I had to do was shave, and I could have
easily.
Done that job.
Actually, if you can find that ad, John, we can play it. I also would love to play a clip from Wall Street because it's that same, and all you have to say is Michael Douglas Wall Street, and everybody knows what we're talking about. That first Motorola phone that was really big. Of course, at the time, it was amazingly small.
Well, that's right. You could hold it up. And in fact, the Michael Douglas phone was 10 years later, believe it or not. The technology took a long time in those days. Actually, it still does. But the phone in the ad weighed 2.5 pounds.
Wow.
Had a battery life of 20 minutes. So 10 years later, they got it down to 1.5 pounds and an hour of battery life. So
wow. So it took a while. It was the Dynatac.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. What I think now we have a bag phone, which is you got a big bag over your arm that's got a big battery in it. That's not the Dynatac. The Dynatac was standalone.
Well, that's right. And the key issue was the cellular technology, which Bell Labs had come up with some years before, which involved having a lot of radio channels, having multiple cells in the city, and having handoff from one cell to another. So when you put all of those things together, you ended up with a huge capacity. That bag phone you were talking about could accommodate perhaps 50 or 100 people in New York City or in L.A. The people who provided the service would put 1,000 people on, which meant that during the busy hour, the chance of ever making a call was like 1 in 20.
I remember those first radio phones, and that was a big deal if you had one in your car or you had a bag phone. And they were just really radios, right?
Well, that's right. Well, that's what a cellular phone is.
I guess
it's
so.
Really
Yeah.
a two-way radio with a lot of digital technology hung on front of it.
Yeah, without that cell infrastructure, it doesn't work quite as well.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's the real contribution was just what you say, and that's what I work on mostly now. has to do with how you use the radio spectrum. With the old system where you could only get 100 people in a city, there just was not enough. There were not enough radio channels to ever provide a useful service. And so the concept of cellular allowed many, many more people to be served. And that's really what made cellular so ubiquitous.
It feels like we're talking about prehistory, ancient history here. But when I tell you what year this was, folks, you might be amazed. This isn't 1945 or 1965. We're talking 1983.
Yeah. Yeah, well, actually, my team and I came up with the portable cell phone in 1973. But that's still pretty ancient because there was no internet. There were no personal computers, no digital cameras, no large-scale integrated circuits. So that sounds pretty ancient to me.
It wasn't sold till 10 years later. I should correct myself. 73 was when he invented it. What was so AT&T, Bell Labs had come up with this notion of cell technology. Were they thinking of that kind of network, the one that eventually evolved out of that?
They were thinking of a network. They never thought this was going to be a very big deal. Their predictions, and AT&T was the largest company in the world, and they'd done extensive marketing studies, and their conclusion was that the United States market for car phones, which is what they were focused on, was about 2 million. And amazingly enough, they were right. The maximum number of car phones in the United States was roughly around 2 million. Because by the time they got up to the 2 million, people realized that people are fundamentally mobile, and trapping somebody in a car is no better than tying them to their desk or their home with a copper wire. If you want the freedom of real communications, you have to have portable communications. The phone has to be a part of the person. And that, of course, is what happened. And now there are 7 billion people in the world that have access to a cell phone.
It's amazing. It's really amazing. Were you at AT&T at the time?
Oh, no. We were AT&T's competitor.
You were Motorola.
We were at Motorola.
But
Motorola was a two-way radio company.
Maybe it's urban legend, but I'm told that first phone call was to AT&T.
Well, that's right. That's right. I was calling. I was running Motorola's program. Joel Engel, Dr. Joel Engel, was running the AT&T program, and I just took a wild shot and called his number, talking to a reporter on the streets of New York. And by amazing coincidence, Joel answered the phone himself, and I told him, Joel, I'm calling you from a cell phone, but a real cell phone, a personal, portable, handheld cell phone.
Here's the Mazda ad. I just show a little bit of it.
Marty Cooper invented the mobile phone in 1973.
Hello? Yeah, this is Marty. Guess what we did?
Activity took a mighty leap.
So they don't really mention who that is on the other end.
Well, they would have had to ask his permission, and
right.
Joel's not very happy.
It's such a great story. You obviously were colleagues. You weren't. You know. I mean, you were. Oh, there it is. He's got it.
Yeah. So this is an exact model of that first phone, and you get a feel for how big it is.
Yeah. You know, I do know where one of those is, probably a working model. I was at the FCC in Washington, D.C.
Most of this width here is battery.
We're losing a little. We're getting a little Skype breakup here. So let me say again. No, it's not. The Skype is this.
You were saying you were at the FCC?
Yeah, we just wanted to wait till Skype settles down. It was breaking up. Could you show me the phone again? Because we lost that part.
Sure. Yeah, this is an exact model of the phone, and I pointed out that there is a remarkable delay that a good part of the back of the phone is battery. It was nickel cadmium batteries.
So that, of course, means you had to have a lot of them, and they had the memory effect, and you only got 20 minutes of battery life. I was saying the last time I saw one of those was in Washington, D.C., in the lobby of the Federal Communications Commission. They have a great museum of technology, and right there is the Dynatac, the very first cell phone. It's a bit of history.
Yeah, it is, and I'm still very closely involved with the FCC. I'm on their Technological Advisory Council, and I'm working very hard on getting people to use the spectrum even more efficiently than it is today.
Those first phones were analog.
That's right.
And we're seeing right now why analog's not such a bad thing.
Wow. I didn't know you could have such a long delay. It's amazing.
We're gonna call you right back. Sometimes Skype does this. We're gonna call you right back. So hang on, Marty. We'll just call you back. Of course, as soon as you get the father of cell phone technology on there.
Yeah, we have got about 10 seconds of latency. I don't understand how that happens.
Yeah, you're on Wi-Fi probably, huh, Marty?
I am, although we've got a pretty fast service here.
Yeah, Wi-Fi.
It's not fast right now.
And this is something you could solve for us. Wi-Fi does not seem to be very good. It's probably a QoS thing, but it also seems to be that it goes up and down. Like it's not a sustained throughput. That the throughput varies. We usually try to get people on wired connection for that reason, and very frequently when we're on Wi-Fi, we have issues like this. I just don't understand why.
That's a very important thing that you just said now, because there's a thrust to get more frequency for Wi-Fi services, and I'm opposed to that unless they go to the next generation of Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi itself is really ancient technology, really inefficient. And that's the reason that we're having all these problems now. Looks like we're okay at the moment, though.
Yeah. Isn't it ironic? But thank goodness there's Marty Cooper can help us solve this issue. Actually, there's a big satellite telecommunication company, Global, that wants to take the channel 14. The channel is currently not in use on the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum, and do some sort of kind of satellite Wi-Fi. And this is a little controversial, isn't it?
Well, as you must have figured out, I'm in favor of any kind of competition. But before anybody comes in and uses any new spectrum, it ought to be with the most advanced technology.
Yeah.
And the Wi-Fi is right now ancient technology. Even LTE is not yet developed to the point where we're using the most modern versions. So, and what's the reason for all that? It's not only accessibility, it's not only this delay, but if we're going to get the benefits of portability to everybody, and the benefits of the combination of the internet and personal communications, the cost has got to go way down. And the only way to do that is to get more efficient in how we use the radio spectrum.
Is it analogous, I shouldn't say analog, is it analogous to what happened with television moving off the 700 megahertz frequency, moving off analog to digital? The FCC mandated a few years ago. That was about getting more efficient, wasn't it?
Oh, of course. I mean, just think about it. The analog television was created in the 1940s. Talk about ancient history. And the same technology was used for how many years?
Yeah.
It's like 70 years. That was a total travesty.
Yeah. And that's interesting because spectrum is finite, but you can certainly increase the efficiency with which you use it.
Well, that's exactly right. I did an analysis some time ago and demonstrated that we have doubled our potential throughput of the radio spectrum every 18 months for over 100 years. So we are now 10 trillion times more efficient in using the radio spectrum for wireless.
Wow.
And then we were, when Marconi did his thing back around the turn of the century. And there's no reason to believe, let me put it differently, there's every reason to believe that we can keep doing that we keep doubling every 18 months for at least another 50 or 60 years. So the real pressure is on to keep using the spectrum more efficiently, get the cost down.
Is there a Moore's law of spectrum?
Well,
maybe we'll call it Cooper's law. I think you just
Moore's law is not exactly a law either, but this analysis I did, some people call Cooper's law. Yeah. I call it the law of spectral efficiency.
I like it. Cooper's law, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back with more with Marty Cooper, the inventor of. If you walk down the street making a cell call, blame this guy, the inventor of the cell phone at Motorola in 1973. And I want to talk about the 10 years it took to bring that to market. We'll have more in just a little bit. Our show today brought to you by our friends at Prosper.com. You know, the banking industry is probably not notorious for being state-of-the-art. Things are moving along. Prosper is a startup that does something called peer-to-peer lending, and it's totally inspired. Prosper connects people who have got money to lend with people who want to borrow money. Imagine what you would do if you knew right now that within 72 hours you'd have as much as $35,000 to cover your needs. What would you do with $35,000? Would you pay off high-rate credit cards? If you've got them, you should do. That's the first thing you should do. Would you start a business? Maybe do a little home improvement. Prosper peer-to-peer lending is easy. You don't have to set foot inside a bank. There's no huge, outrageous fees, no rising interest rates. You're going to get a fixed rate, a low fixed rate for an unsecured personal loan. You do not have to provide collateral. Multi-year terms are available. I want you to visit prosper.com/twit. There are currently 2 million people, lenders and borrowers at Prosper.com, over $900 million in funded loans. This works. This is a great solution. Prosper.com/twit. Right now, for a limited time, they're offering Twit viewers a $50 Amazon gift card when you get a loan. Visit Prosper.com/twit. Up to $35,000 in just 3 days. And the Amazon gift card for $50 is yours when you get the loan. Prosper is not affiliated with Amazon. For gift card details, visit prosper.com/twit. And we thank them for their support of Triangulation. So somebody brought me a bag phone. This is not the phone we're talking. This is from Novotel. This is crazy. I guess the idea with this is you can't carry this in the giant bag and walk down the street. But was this radio phone or was this a cell phone technology going back to the Novotel?
A radio phone.
So what you were trying?
It only had just at the most 10 channels that you could access.
So in a city, only 10 people can make a call.
That's exactly right.
Crazy, but only 10 people maybe wanted to make a call back then. What was it? Your idea? What happened that you said? Call Marty.
That's me. let me hang up.
Yeah, sure.
Somebody's going to be mad at me now.
What the heck? You're Marty Cooper. You can do anything you want. What happened in the early 70s that you said there's got to be a better way? Was it that you wanted to be able to walk down the street and make a phone call?
Well, first of all, the concept of people are fundamentally mobile, we had learned a long time previously. It may have started out with Dick Tracy. You remember him? You're old enough to remember Dick Tracy.
Absolutely, with a wristwatch phone, and he'd talk into it. You bet.
That's right. And we understood. We were in the two-way radio business, and we could see all kinds of people in the industrial world who could not run their businesses without communications and without personal communications. So when we saw the Dick Tracy radio, we were lusting after having such a thing. And finally, somewhere in the 1960s, we actually built a wrist radio, and Dick Tracy came out with his video wrist radio. So
That's right.
Always ahead of us. You couldn't catch up. But so when AT&T announced that they were asking for radio spectrum, for radio channels, so they could do this new cellular concept, we were enthusiastic until they said car telephones. And then the second thing they said was monopoly. They wanted to have the sole ownership of the spectrum and of the service, and we were opposed to both of those things. And that was really the stimulus for creating the handheld portable.
Now,
we believed in competition. We believed the world was ready for real personal communications for handheld devices.
and as you said, Motorola at the time, it was a radio company.
Two-way radio was their
radio.
primary service. They were in other businesses, but they were the player in the two-way radio business. Pretty boring title, but it was a very good business and very profitable for Motorola.
Oh yeah.
By the way, Motorola is still the dominant player in that area. They make most of the public safety radios, perhaps in the world.
Absolutely. And who hasn't watched NFL football and watched a coach with a Motorola headset, big old Motorola on the side, talking to the guys up in the box? But and I'm trying to think, but I think the name Motorola came from the mixing of motor and Victrola. The original Motorola's were in-car radio systems, yes?
That's right. The foundation of Motorola happened to be the year I was born. We don't have to mention that, although everybody knows it anyway. That was 1928. Paul Galvin, who was the founder of Motorola, and some of his colleagues actually put a radio into a car. Remember, this is a car that didn't even have a battery in it, never mind other technology. And they ripped the old car apart and put a radio in it. At that time, RCA had a name, Victrola. That's way before your time, Leo.
I remember the name, though. Yes.
Yeah, and so they came up with the name Motorola, and that stuck.
Yeah. So I love it because you said we're not going to let AT&T own this business. They did. Who had the patents on cell phones? Was it Bell?
Well, the invention of cellular was really spread around many, many people. What we at Motorola invented was the phone and the system that was specifically portable. And I had a team of geniuses, both in industrial design and every other element of the radio. And so we had a number of patents. Bell had a number of patents. It took so long to get to commercial service that none of the patents ended up having much value.
Yeah. That's good news. I think in this day and age, patent trolls could have killed something as exciting as the cellular technology and ultimately cellular phones.
You're right, Leo, and I'm hoping that we get to fix that problem. There's some movement in that area, as you well know.
So the cellular technology existed. You knew that Motorola could sit on top of that you'd be able to do that. What problems did you have to solve to create this portable cellular-based telephone?
Oh, boy. Everything was new. The simple things as the antenna, nobody had done two-way communications at 1,000 megahertz. That was an incredible number. The highest we'd ever gotten to was 450 megahertz. So we had to have a new antenna. We had to come up with a way of doing transmit and receive at the same time. We call that duplex. And that had never been done in a portable. And when we did that at 450 megahertz in a mobile, the device that allowed you to transmit and receive at the same time was bigger than the size of your fist. And we had to squeeze that into this little box. We had to put hundreds of radio channels into this box. When the most we've ever had before was just a couple of channels. So there were just a huge number of challenges, most of them associated with miniaturization, but also using this new frequency band.
Well, and I know we have a lot of, I'm a ham, and we have a lot of hams who watch, and they know very well analog radio and how tricky it can be, and the notion of going from 150 megahertz to 1,000 megahertz, never been done before. I know that they can, and we can all imagine the challenges of that. You must have had a really brilliant team to do that.
They were.
Yeah.
They were extraordinary guys.
So the first prototype, it's 1973. I love this press opportunity you mentioned. You've got a radio reporter walking nobody'd ever seen this before. A guy on a phone talking and walking. We're so used to it now. In fact, it's hazardous now. People run into you walking in the street, but nobody'd ever done that before. Did you get stares?
Well, yeah, it was amazing. If you've ever walked down the streets of New York, you could be transparent. People don't even look at each other.
Right.
And there were people gawking at us. Because if you think about it, I mentioned all the things that didn't exist. Even a cordless phone didn't exist then.
Right. So they probably thought you were just nuts.
They do. Yeah, well.
We've all gotten used to the people talking to themselves
that may still be true. There are still people.
So 1973, you've got it. It's working. And whose cell towers are you using? Did you have to put up your own? Oh,
you bet. That's the thing that people don't realize even today. It takes a very complex system to make cellular work. And in order to just do that demonstration, which we did both in New York and in Washington, we had to build not only the phones, but the towers that the phones talk to. So in New York, we had one tower. We did our demonstration near the New York Hilton. We had a tower in the building associated or across the street from the New York Hilton. It's called at that time, it was called the Burlington Tower. Today, it's the Alliance Building. And by the way, that's base station that we use is still there.
No kidding.
The union wanted so much money to take that station down. We decided it was cheaper to leave it up there. So it's still there. And then we had another one down at Wall Street so that we could take this portable down to AT&T and demonstrate it to them as well.
So does history record what Joel Engel said, your rival at AT&T, when you called him and said, "You'll never guess where I'm calling you from"?
Who would ever have guessed that would have such important significance?
Well, Watson, come here. I need you. It's one of those moments. And how many of us do not remember the first time we used a cell phone in an airplane? And of course, what's the first thing you say? "You'll never believe where I'm calling you from."
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's exactly right.
We can all identify. What was Joel's response? "Oh, damn you, Cooper!"
Well, Joel says he doesn't remember the call, and I guess if I was him, I wouldn't either. But he's always been very polite.
That's very funny. It's very convenient. He called me, really? I think that must feel very good when you do something like that. Why did it take, though, 10 years from prototype to product?
Well, there were actually two reasons. The more important reason is that we had to develop the technology further. Remember that I mentioned that there were no integrated circuits, no large-scale integrated circuits in '73. There were actually 4 different iterations of that phone, each one getting smaller and smaller, that were created over a period of 10 years. So we had to make the phone smaller, more reproducible, and finish building that system. AT&T was ready to go in 1980. They could have done it in only 7 years, and we actually stalled them because we thought that if AT&T got a head start and started implementing car telephones, that it would be just that much more difficult to get the portable going. So we stalled them. But the other issue is if we're going to have competition, you need competitors. So the FCC had to decide who was going to own all of these cellular systems. And that process, they had comparative hearings that took all kinds of time, and that took years as well. So the combination of those two things stretched the commercial service out until 1983.
Of course, it was in '82 that the Bell system was broken up. So I think people watching today don't really understand that AT&T dominated everything until 1982. I mean, there wasn't a Verizon or a Sprint. There wasn't another cell phone, another company that could do this. It was AT&T, and that's it.
That's right. You couldn't even own a phone.
You had to rent it.
To get a phone, you had to rent it. from AT&T.
Yeah. So I think in many ways it's very bold of Motorola to say we want to compete with Ma Bell.
It was a real testament, Leo, to the leadership at Motorola. If you think about the fact that Motorola had to invest something like $100 million.
Wow.
They were only $1 billion company.
Wow.
And over a period of 10 years, they invested $100 million without getting a nickel of revenues. So the leadership of Motorola, Bob Galvin, who was the son of the founder, Bill Weiss, John Mitchell, who was my mentor for many years, these were real visionaries who were willing to bet the company that Cellular was going to be a success.
It was a very gutsy move. So the first cell sites were put up by whom?
In Chicago, it was Illinois Bell, who were now broken away from AT&T. They were with the company called Ameritech. And in Washington, it was a small radio common carrier, American Radio Telephone Service, the RTS, and they had the Motorola system. Actually, in Chicago, they were using Motorola car telephones and portables, but in Washington, the entire system was developed by Motorola.
So that's another thing. This isn't a national rollout. You're going, because you have to put up cell sites, you're going city by city.
It was amazing, but even in those early days, people did not believe that this was going to be an important national service. We had trouble getting people to even accept the concept that you'd be able to use the phone a phone that you bought in Washington and be able to go to Chicago and use it. They call that roaming. So it took a long time for people to grasp the fact that this was going to be freedom, ubiquitous communications wherever you were, anywhere in the world.
Did you have that vision? Were you able to see that coming?
Of course. When we talked about the portable phone, we told a story about someday when you were born, you'd be assigned a phone number, and if you didn't answer the phone, you had died. So,
your number for life. We're getting close.
Yeah, we really believed that this was going to be ubiquitous.
Wow. You must be, it must be fascinating for you to see what has happened, how this has grown. Are there things that you are surprised by, things you're unhappy about, the way the global communications has been transformed?
Well, I think we're still in very early days with what we call the smartphones. Everybody is all caught up in the megabits per second, the number of pixels.
Yeah.
And none of these things are really to the point. The point is the user experience and how our lives are impacted. And there is so much potential, and yet we've been caught up in the glamour of the next Samsung or Apple announcement. But these things are starting to change now. We're starting to grow up a little bit, and we're going to start to see some real impact on society, even beyond the phone itself. That hasn't happened yet. But I think the phone is going to revolutionize education. I think that we're going to find that children who are connected outside of school can learn much more and much faster on their own than they can at school. They'll still need to go to school to interact with other students and with the teachers, but they are going to learn faster and be much smarter because they are interconnected in the future. I think that healthcare, our healthcare system is broken today. That's going to be revolutionized because people are going to be interconnected. We're going to be able to have sensors on people that will talk to computers and to doctors using the cell phone network, and we'll be able to sense that the disease is starting to take hold in your body before it actually becomes a disease, and we can nip it in the bud when it's easy to catch instead of waiting till it has actually taken over. And the most important thing that we're starting to notice now is collaboration. Right now we're playing games with Twitter, Facebook, and all the other collaboration, interactive services. But what's going to happen when those things are starting to go into our industrial complex? I think the whole way of doing business is going to change and become much, much more efficient. And that's crucial, because what that does is increase the total gross national product. And if you've got a bigger production, we're going to be able to solve problems like poverty as they have never been solved before, because the pie is going to be just that much bigger.
We're talking to Marty Cooper. In 1973, while at Motorola, he created the first portable cell phone, the Dynatac. And the inventor of the cell phone is is that fair to call you the inventor of the cell phone, Marty?
Well, I introduced the first one, and I did pull the team together and had the idea, but there were a bunch of other inventions involved. Just as an example, the ability to get hundreds of channels in one unit was invented by one of my colleagues. This business of combining the transmit, receive, and talk at the same time is another invention. So there are a whole bunch of inventions involved.
Huge number if you think about it. I want to talk about the idea of data over a cellular network in just a second, but we're going to take a little break here. It's snack time, Marty. If you want to get a snack, I happen to have some very good snacks here from my Nature Box. I want to tell everybody about Nature Box. Delicious, healthy snacks delivered right to your door by subscription. When I say healthy, these are nutritionist approved. No high fructose corn syrup, no partially hydrogenated oils, no artificial sweeteners, no trans fats. Good stuff, delicious stuff. You can subscribe for 3, 6, or 12 months. Or just get that first box. In fact, we're going to get you 50% off your first box. When you do, you have a couple of choices. You can get a random selection, which I recommend because you'd be surprised all the different. There's more than 100 different varieties of snacks, like barbecue kettle kernels, French toast granola, chili lime pistachios. These are the delicious peppery pistachios. You can also decide if you wish, no, I only want vegan or soy-free. Maybe you're gluten conscious or you want lactose or nut-free. You can do that as well, non-GMOs. You get to pick, put your package together. These sour cream and onion almonds are phenomenal. And of course, lots of great antioxidants in those almonds. Good stuff, delivered. Why go to the snack machine when you get a little peckish, when you can get to your Nature Box? I'm really glad we have these now. We've got a ton of Nature Boxes around the studio, and we are loving them. I invite you to get yours first one 50% off at naturebox.com/twit. Use the offer code TWIT, 50% off. It's the snack happy gift that keeps on giving. naturebox.com/twit. Marty Cooper is our very special guest for this hour of Triangulation. I'll say the father of the cell phone. The first one, the guy who freed us all so we didn't have to have that long cord from the kitchen phone and get all wrapped up around. We could walk anywhere and speak to anybody in the world. There are now, 6 billion cell phone users out there in the world? Something like that. It's a huge number. Data is a whole nother thing, and I think it was Hams that first used packet radio to send data over the analog signal.
Yeah, the first data systems for wireless was called GSM, and interestingly enough, it was developed in Europe, and a little bit later, CDMA was developed here in the U.S. by what is now Qualcomm.
Right.
And in the U.S., they actually became competitive. And if you haven't got the message yet, I think that the competition was wonderful. And it kept U.S. In the leadership because you had two competitive companies, each trying to make their service better than the other one.
GSM and CDMA, yeah.
So there were two things that happened. First of all, you got more efficient. You could get more people on a channel. And the second thing is you now had an efficient way to get data. And of course, that's engendered a whole new world of applications.
Of course, CDMA and GSM are now merging into LTE. In fact, we're starting to see voice as data over LTE. So that competition is going away. Do you think that's a bad thing?
Believe it or not, the competition is going to keep happening, hopefully in better areas. As I told you before, we're still in early days. They compete on things like who's got the fastest network. And most of us don't really care about how fast the network is. We care about our experience.
Right.
Can we do the things that we want to do, and can we get the cost right? So the competition is going to start focusing in on the user experience, on the applications, on what I think the really important things are. But we are going to have competition. I hope that Wi-Fi gets improved. So even that's going to be competing with the wide area networks. And we ought to be able to get the cost of service down 10 times less than it is today.
1/10 of what it is today.
Well, absolutely, but it's not going to cost you. That's cost per megabit, but not the cost to you. You're still going to be paying $30 a month for the service, but hopefully many, many more people will have access to the networks, and the service will be much more ubiquitous than it is today. Right now, the data service is an elite service. People charging people $60 a month for a very minimal amount of data is not what's going to engender this future that I described. We've got to get it down so every school child has access to this network, and virtually every person in the country. And when that happens, these revolutions are really going to take hold.
You know, Cooper's law in some ways really implies, just as Moore's law really implied the reduction in cost of computer and digital technology, the Cooper's law implies that the cost of bandwidth should go down.
That's right. There is a corollary, because I did the analysis of what has it cost per bit since Marconi did his first transmission. And it turns out that has halved every 2.5 years for the past 100 years. So the cost of sending a bit of information is a trillionth today of what it was at the time Marconi did this thing, and that's going to keep happening as well. So the cost per bit is going to go way, way down. We're just going to use a lot more bits.
Unfortunately, it hasn't gone down to the end user. They haven't really passed that savings along to us. But you're hopeful that that wireless data costs will go down and it will become more ubiquitous?
Has to happen.
Yeah.
It just has to happen because we can't. There's so much benefit to be had out of the freedom that comes out of this ubiquity and the increase in efficiency. It would be a shame if this is restricted to just a few people.
I think that's what we have to look at is the societal benefit is so significant.
You bet.
Yeah. Does that mean governments need to enforce this? How do we solve this? Competition doesn't necessarily seem to be.
You bet. Competition will do it. The one thing the government should do is not allow people to offer a service in new spectrum unless they do something better. That's the one thing that the government can stimulate, and I'm pushing very hard in that regard. But you're right. If the system has competition built in, then that's going to happen automatically.
Right. But there is a role for government because the airwaves are ours. We own the airwaves.
That's right. We own the spectrum. You and I and all the other people own the spectrum. And the government should just make sure that people use that spectrum efficiently. That's the role of the government. They haven't done very well at that up till now because the Congress, in its interest in getting cash, has been auctioning off the spectrum without regard to how efficiently people use it. And I think that's a big mistake. Anybody that buys the radio spectrum, if you think about it, you buy it for a fixed price, and yet the value keeps going up and up, doubling every 18 months. So anybody that buys the spectrum now is getting the bargain of the century. And the FCC or the Congress ought to put requirements in that people use that spectrum in the public interest. That's what the law says. that anybody who gets the spectrum doesn't own it. They just license it, and they are required to use that spectrum in the public interest and convenience. So I hope that the FCC and the Congress really establishes the rules, realize that, and take a much longer view position than they have in the past.
Are the technologies out there to do that? To make it more efficient? Or do they need to be invented?
Oh, no. There technology that will keep us going for the next 20 or 30 years have already been invented. They are available to LTE. LTE actually has what we call hooks in it that will allow smart antennas to be added. That hasn't happened yet, but it's going to within the next year or two. And as I said before, we're good for another 20 or 30 years without new inventions, but you know that there are going to be inventions happening regularly.
We're talking to Marty Cooper, the one of the fathers of the mobile technology that what we all live by these days. What do you think of projects like Google's Loon project to bring Wi-Fi via balloon? Facebook has a drone project in mind. Are these the kinds of solutions that we need to bring internet to everyone?
Well, they're interesting. But the main value to that is temporary things, and also maybe to bring some service to some rural areas that don't have service now. But I think Google is experimenting, and I think that's all good. What we really need is much lower cost spectrum and more competition. So if Google is serious, what I think they're going to do, and Facebook, is they ought to get together and make Wi-Fi much more ubiquitous. And if that happens, if you can really use Wi-Fi on your, say, a different kind of cell phone, and be able to move around and know that you can find Wi-Fi almost everywhere, now we'll have even more competition. And I think that's going to be one of the most important long-term solutions. We get enough competition, everybody is going to be forced to use the new technology, and everybody will benefit.
Of course, Motorola, like Lucent, has become essentially an equipment, network equipment manufacturer. And Nortel, Motorola, Lucent, all struggling. Web 9025 says, why is it that the equipment manufacturers are having trouble making money, but service providers like AT&T and Verizon are raking it in?
Well, everybody can have their own opinion. I think the infrastructure, that's what you're referring to.
Right.
That's a techie word that we use. The infrastructure manufacturers, just as a matter of history, became very concentrated. There were just a few in the world, and they were stuck with the old technology. New technology came along. They didn't keep up with it. And as a result, most of them are either in trouble or out of business.
Right.
I think that's evolving now. You're going to see a whole bunch of new companies in the business. You're going to see new kinds of infrastructure, like femtocells, other kinds of small cells, the smart antennas that I talked about before. And when the operators, the AT&T, Verizon, Vodafones of the world, start using this new technology, it's my hope that the infrastructure business will start becoming vital, because we need that. We need somebody to build these new technologies in, and the Alcatel's, Alcatel-Lucent, and the few companies that are left are enough in trouble, so they are not leading the way yet. That's going to be an important change in the future.
I'm actually talking to you from Petaluma, California, which was an area for some time that was considered a heart of telecommunications invention with fiber optics and fiber communications. Alcatel bought couple of the big companies here, and they've fired everybody, and it's kind of no longer Telecom Valley. But for a while, there was a lot of interesting stuff going on here in Petaluma, California. Just out of curiosity, what kind of cell phone do you use?
Well, I get a new cell phone every time somebody comes up with something better.
Right on.
And what I'm using right now is the Moto X,
Love it.
Which, yeah, do you really? I think it's a great phone.
It's what I carry.
And
it's my favorite phone. It blows me away.
Well, the reason that I really like it is the principle. They're trying to make the phone more reactive to the person. So as an example, every time I take that phone and lift it up, it tells me what time it is while I'm not pushing any buttons.
Yeah.
If I wiggle it, it becomes a camera, and I can take a picture. I can make a phone call by just saying Google now and call Leo Laporte. So it's starting to get to what a cell phone ought to be, because I think cell phones today are much too complex. There's so much emphasis on having hundreds of thousands of apps when you only use a few, and much less emphasis on making the phone accommodate the person. Technology is supposed to be your slave, not you being a slave to the technology.
Oh, for me,
so
yes.
Moto
please.
X is a step in that direction. I hope everybody else starts following that path.
It's nice that it's nice that it's Motorola too. You must own other phones besides Motorola phones, though.
Oh, you bet. As I say, I've got one of almost everything, and including a Jitterbug, which is.
Well, let me ask you about that, because that's
obviously it's the best way to make a phone call.
Yeah, you invested in Jitterbug. I bought a Jitterbug for my mom, and I love it. Now, I bought it because it had easy-to-read screen and big buttons, but I like this kind of concierge aspect to it that you were telling me about, and I think that's kind of intriguing. So tell me about that.
Well, when you sign up for the Jitterbug, they create a profile, and that profile exists anytime you call the operator, which you do just by pushing the O button. The operator answers and knows everything about you that you want them to know. So as I told you, your mother can just push that O button and say, get Leo on the phone, and there you are. And the operator addresses your mother by her name. Not only that, by whatever name she wants to be addressed.
just like the Moto X.
There's another feature where you can push *5 and get an emergency service. So they're now getting into the healthcare and emergency area. So this is a phone that attempts to accommodate the needs of people and not to be a universal device that does all things for all people, but doesn't do any of them very well.
Jitterbug is sold by a variety of different companies, and then you would sign up for phone service separately. Is that right?
No. Actually, the Jitterbug is sold by Great Call.
It's only Great Call. Okay.
You can buy it at Walmart, if I can talk about an individual place. You can get it. You can get it at Fry's, as a matter of fact. But the easiest way to get it is on the web. And you buy the thing from Great Call. You pay the Great Call is the carrier. It actually operates on Verizon's network, but you pay your bill to Great Call.
They're an MVNO. This is a great idea, and I think my mom loved it. It was a really good solution for her. Actually, she now has a Samsung Galaxy Note 2, because she likes the big screen and she likes the stylus. But I know she would love some of these concierge features too. We've got to get the concierge features into the other smartphones as well. Were you now when Motorola Mobility was sold to Google, and then now it's been sold on to Lenovo? What did you think of that? Was that a good thing when Google bought them?
Well, the whole situation is a heartbreak to me, because as you know, in the years after the introduction of cellular, Motorola was the leader in the industry. They built the infrastructure, and the phones, and this was a division that I helped create. I actually started what was called the Systems Division in 1970, and that's what became Motorola Mobility. But unfortunately, at some point, that division, the company, kind of lost their way. The founders were kind of pushed out of the company, and the company's never really recovered.
It's a shame. I mean, I carried a StarTAC for years. In fact, I have. If you can get my StarTAC, Karsten, it's in it's in my my museum of old phones. The flip phone was the greatest thing ever. I had Motorola phones for years, and you're right, they just fell off the face of the map. I think Apple probably put the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, well, as I say, you need the vision, and once you lose that, boy, it's really tough to get it back, and it was a heartbreak to see that get lost.
What's interesting, and I hope you get a chance to talk with these guys, is the Project Ara stuff that was part of Motorola Mobility was not sold to Lenovo, the kind of blue sky R&D stuff, and Google has retained Project Ara. In fact, they're doing some really interesting devices, I think, including kind of modular phones that you can assemble as your needs change and your needs differ. Have you followed this at all?
Well, no, I haven't. I'm not crazy with the idea of the modular phone, but I am of trying out different things and of unleashing yourself from history, doing things differently. All those experiments are important. Whether Google Glass or this modular phone becomes successful or not is not as important as trying all these different things. Because as the cell phone evolves, they've got to stop trying to build this universal device and make a bunch of different devices that are custom built for you. The future of any technology is in customization, of having whatever the technology is adapting to you, being really convenient to be transparent or at least intuitive and easy to use. That is so important. And that will never happen if you keep building universal devices.
Yeah, here's one of my my old Motorola phones. I thought this was always quite beautiful.
Yeah, neat.
Were you a Star Trek fan? I think these were inspired by the Star Trek. You know.
Well, I was, but as I told you before, Dick Tracy was much more important than Star Trek. Star Trek didn't happen until 1966, if I recall. Yeah. And we were already imbued with the concept of people are mobile. And we were trying to do that with two-way radios. We built, in the mid-'60s, we actually built a police radio system that was a precursor of cellular. Police officers in Chicago could move around walking in the city and talk everywhere in the city. When they got in their cars, they could still communicate. And that happened because the superintendent of the police, a guy named Brenda Wilson, came to us and told us he had to get his patrolmen back on the streets with the people. Yes. And there you have it. It's the idea of doing things that are right for people. And that's really what the definition of good technology is.
I know you're big into home automation. I want to ask you a little bit about what you're doing in your home and what technologies you like these days, what you're interested in. Do you have Google Glass? Have you tried that out?
Well, I'm going to get my Google Glass, I hope, within the next few weeks, and I can give you a report on how that looks. You're right, I am big into home automation, and I have automated my home with great effort. I'm afraid home automation...
It's too hard,
It's not yet ready for the consumer. I had to go through 4 different systems before I found one that really worked, at the moment, I should keep my fingers crossed or knock on some wood. Everything works fine. My drapes go up and down depending on what the temperature is outside. And
are you driving your wife crazy?
Where the sun is. And,
let's be honest. Is your wife nuts with this whole thing? And she's saying, Marty, you got to stop with the automation.
My wife wants everything to be bulletproof. And automation is not. My wife is much smarter than I am. And she's also an inventor, by the way, because she came up with all that Jitterbug stuff we were talking about.
Oh, you're kidding. Oh, that's
But
neat.
You're right. She's a skeptic. She just wants this thing to be really simple, and she wants it to work all the time, and she doesn't want to ever have to learn anything. And boy, is that a tough combination.
No kidding. We have there's a term in the consumer electronics industry, SAF, spousal acceptance factor. We need to work on that. SAF.
Say that again.
SAF.
Repeat that.
Spousal acceptance factor.
Ah, yes.
It's very important.
I'm going to write that down.
We'll have a few final words with. I'm so pleased to be able to talk to Marty Cooper.
It's a great filter for new technology.
Exactly. And I'm not saying wife. I'm saying spouse. It could go either way. I'm not. No gender specific stuff here. Spousal.
Yeah,
acceptance.
you're very thoughtful.
Yes, because your wife's a geek, obviously. We're going to ask you a little bit more about the details in a second, but I just want to mention personal capital. This was something that was inspired by a Triangulation interview 2 years ago when I talked to Bill Harris, the founder. He was a former CEO of Intuit and of PayPal. He knew a lot about money, about finance, and we were talking about how can we make it easier for people to keep track of their money, to know what their money's doing, to know where their money is. And right now, it's like just a hodgepodge of websites. You got your loans, your credit cards, your investments, your bank account, and they're all different sites with different passwords. So he created, and I joined it immediately, personalcapital.com. It's a dashboard of everything you got, everything you own, your entire financial position, and then with an eye towards investing for the future. How do you make your money grow so that you can retire, so you can live life the way you want to live it? And that's what this is all about. So personalcapital.com/triangulation. It's free, iPad, iPhone, Android phone, desktop. You'll get a one-page financial dashboard, but it also assesses what you're paying in fees, whether you're overpaying in fees, for your investments. You can get tailored investment advice, optimize what you're doing with your money. It is the path to a better life. It's personal capital and it's free. Of course it is. I mean, it has to be. How could you expect to save money if you're spending it on something? Personalcapital.com/triangulation. Try it today. Bill's done a great job, and we really are glad to be part of the Personal Capital family. Personalcapital.com/triangulation. So that is one of the issues, isn't it? Marty Cooper is our guest, the inventor of the cell phone. In 1973, the Dynatac made a product first in 1983. You saw Michael Douglas carrying one in Wall Street, those big old phones. In fact, you saw them in movies everywhere until movie makers finally realized, don't show a cell phone because it dates the movie instantly. You know exactly what the era was, right?
Yeah, just like with the cars.
Yep. Yep. So now they're very careful if they don't have an ad deal. Sometimes they have an ad deal, and so they go, look at my phone, I'm going to make a call. But if they don't have the ad deal, they go like this. They kind of hide the phone in their hand, so you can't really judge by the age of the phone. What home automation system did you finally decide on? I'm very curious.
Well, it's a combination of things. The actual network around my house is a thing called Insteon. It's made by an outfit called the Smart Home.
Okay.
And that's both RF and a wireline carrier. And that's how all the lights and the drapes and everything are turned on and off. The system that controls it, I've got sitting here, it's called the iViewer. Let's see, I can show you what the screen looks like. So here you can see.
It's an iPad application, I guess. Yeah.
So I can push a button and control my lights with one button, shades with another one, watch TV, watch Netflix, and so forth.
I love it that you said that you're
almost always works, and it's tied in with a computer that's made by an outfit called Universal Devices, and that computer knows what the temperature is, knows the exact time, knows when the tides are coming in. So I can use all those as criteria for when other things happen. So it's great fun, but as I said before, not ready for consumers.
So I love it that your curtains know what time of day it is, where the sunlight is, and they close and open to moderate the sunlight. That's awesome. That's really great. That means internet connection, right? You need to they need, like the Nest thermostat. You need to go out and check the tides and things like that.
Well, that's right. It requires. I must have 4 or 5 different networks in this house.
Holy cow!
One is Wi-Fi. Another one is this Insteon network. I've got Zigbee that looks at my power usage. So it's a mess. And
but what fun!
We need another generation of improvement to integrate things and let everybody else have access to these things.
But I mean, that's really, what fun is that to do that? And then, of course, Arlene comes in and says, Marty, I can't even open the darn curtains. Would you please, fix this?
Have you been listening in our household?
No, it's my house, too. I know. Mr. Cooper, what a thrill, what a pleasure to talk to you. I love it that you're so involved. I know you work with the FCC. You're big on Spectrum and making more efficient use of it. You serve on several committees with the FCC. You're very active with your investments, and I just think it's so great that we're so lucky to have your influence and your presence in the community. So I'm very grateful to you that we could spend some time talking to you today.
I have a report for you, Leo, if you're interested.
Yes.
I now have 100 Twitter followers, more than I had when we started the program. So you passed the test.
Well, we can do more than that. I didn't even plug it. Let's do it again. Twitter.com/ what is it? Marty Phone? What is it?
Marty Mobile.
Marty Mobile.
I am at Marty Mobile.
We have a German viewer. We have many German viewers. We have a German viewer who says, ask Marty if he knows that in Germany we call them handies, not mobiles.
I do know that, and in fact, there are different names in a whole bunch of different countries, and I try to use them all.
Handies, mobiles, cell phones. Yeah, it is kind of not done anymore. We don't call them cell phones anymore. Mobile phones.
Have you thought, Leo, about how dumb it is to call this device a phone? I mean,
it isn't really a phone, is it? Yeah.
That's right. It's insignificant. The phone is an insignificant part of it.
Well, don't we still say we dial a number?
Yeah.
When's the last time you dialed a number?
Exactly.
Let me dial your phone number. What are you talking about? Oh, I'll connect you on the internet. Well, if you come up with a better name, Marty, we'll adopt that because we listen.
I'll put it on my list.
Put it on your Twitter, Marty at Marty Mobile, please. Now let's get him up higher than that. At the end of the show, it was 6,013. We're going to get you to 7,000 before the end of the week. How about that? Let's get some followers.
It's up to 6,054.
In real time, ladies and gentlemen. Marty, home automation. You need a little thing that goes up and down on your Twitter followers, We'll work it out.
Listen, Leo, I'm now into mindfulness. We got to get rid of all these peripheral things and focus in on the real problems.
Ain't that the truth? That's what, and I'm sure this was not something that you were thinking about when you were developing the smartphone, but it has become the ultimate distraction. And you see people walk into traffic, walk into walls, and mindfulness. Wouldn't that be nice?
I just got a note that Mike Elgin is now following me. So welcome, Mike.
He's from our network. He's our news director. So,
is that
Mike is a fan. That's great.
Yeah.
Such a treat to talk to you, Marty, and I really appreciate your time. I do hope that we can make regular contact with you because I'd love to keep up on what's going on in the world and what you think of it all.
You're great fun, Leo, and I really enjoyed it. Anytime, just let me know.
All right, it's a deal. At Marty Mobile, you must follow him. Now, Marty, it's up to you to kind of keep it going with some great tweets. Put some more tweets in there. We do triangulation, and we often do try to get people's Twitter followers up because sometimes I wonder, why are people following, Lady Gaga? They could be following Marty Mobile. We do triangulation every Monday now. In fact, we're going to move to a new time. We're going to be 11 a.m. Pacific starting at the end of the month. As of right now, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 2000 UTC. We will be moving, though, to 1800 UTC a couple of hours earlier. So just keep that in mind starting at the end of March. If you want to watch live, and I like it when you do because then I can see your questions in the chat room and your input and your feedback in real time through our chat room at irc.twit.tv. But if you can't watch live, we do have on-demand audio and video. You can always download the audio or video of any show. This one is at twit.tv/TRI, but also on YouTube, youtube.com/triangulation. Do subscribe in your favorite netcast client, iTunes or Xbox Music or Dogcatcher or Instacast, whatever it is that you use, so that you'll get every episode every week. Because I'm telling you, we get great people. Next week, the physicist and string theoretician Michio Kaku talks to us. Michio, we've talked to him many times about string theory. He was a regular on the Screensavers. But now he's thinking, speaking of mindfulness, about the human mind and how it works and how thought processes work. And I cannot wait to hear what Professor Kaku has to say about that. The following week, the inventor of Centipede, one of the few women in Silicon Valley who was writing video games back in the 80s, will be joining us. So there's a lot of fun guests coming up. Make sure you subscribe. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Triangulation.